Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. We are focusing in a little bit more in depth on understanding the role of defense mechanisms is understood in the psychological community and really kind of certain aspects of our life, the things that we do to protect us from painful feelings, to protect us from painful thoughts, to protect us from unconsciously acknowledged situations, people, events. And so we develop these what are called defense mechanisms or behaviors that protect us from feeling these negative, scary feelings that could be, started in childhood. They could have been started in, your teenage years. It could have started in your young adulthood or even in your late adulthood. So I want you to understand a little bit more about these and how they work, and perhaps have been increased or experienced in more profound life-altering ways once you have experienced narcissistic or psychopathic abuse. And these are really generally what is felt to be unconscious, which means you don't really realize that they're being taking place or the role that they play in your life. And so you might not realize them at the moment when you're engaging in them, but as you become more aware, more educated, and more apt and desire to change because it's no longer working for you in your life, you're really feeling empty and you feel like you have to change something, but you really don't know what it is, chances are you need to change a defense mechanism. And, Freud was kind of the father of psychoanalysis who developed a lot of these, but many psychologists today are well versed in these, and especially in this channel. I think it's very pertinent and very appropriate to understand these in yourself, see the role that they're playing perhaps in keeping you stuck or holding you back from actually allowing you to move on in your life and really live your destiny and what your purpose is in your life so you can actually live the life that you're meant to live rather than just one of suffering, doubt, and confusion. And first, really, some of the more primitive ones are that of denial, basically where you're, living to refuse to accept a certain reality or act. It can be a painful event, thought, or feeling. And oftentimes, these are experienced in childhood. Something very painful, like my parents don't love me, or I'm a horrible person. I mean, these can be really, really painful thoughts that are experienced, especially in childhood, and you don't know how to deal with these. Of course, as a young developing person, you don't have the mental development yet to really cope with these. So you might then, even in childhood, develop such denial. In other words, and then feel, the separation from your authentic self and reality by developing defense mechanisms such as denial to cope with it. And so, for example, a alcoholic parent, you might have been raised by an alcoholic parent, but you want to deny that they're an alcoholic. And so, a lot of people then engage in the enabling behaviors. Also, we see the defense mechanism of regression. That's basically when you revert to an earlier stage of life, and you basically become childlike, and especially if you experience very painful events. This oftentimes is regressive, and you see a lot of people actually today engaging in a lot of this regressive behavior, especially I would say in the Asian cultures, where they have this strange fetish. Maybe it's not so strange, but where they, adults actually dress up like an infant or a child and have sexualization in these roles. And this in essence helps release that stress and is a effective essentially defense mechanism for them. Then we also have acting out. People who act out the very transgressions that were enacted upon them in childhood. So if they were beaten, then they tend to beat other people. If they were yelled at or chastised, then they find themselves engaging in these same behaviors. It's an acting out. It's a defense mechanism that people will use in order to protect them from really being, developing themselves in a more healthy manner. And oftentimes these can be very exacting to behaviors that they experienced in earlier in their life or in other relationships. We also see the defense mechanism of dissociation, where basically, you're losing track of time, and you kind of, are disjointed from certain thought processes or memories. And, you might even dissociate from certain childhood memories. A lot of people have really repressed quite a bit of their childhood and have like dissociated from it as a defense mechanism for dealing with it. And, so it's very important then to kind of heal through and integrate through these so you don't feel so disconnected from your very own life, which when you're healing, you're learning to embrace. And then we also see the defense mechanism of compartmentalization. Basically, it's another way of just kind of like shutting off other areas of your life which you don't feel are really part of you. You feel like it's isolated, and so you might, momentarily cheat on your spouse or significant others, but you feel like it was just a one-time event. But that is essentially a form of a defense mechanism to protect you from dealing and embracing your authentic self. We also see the projection. Oftentimes, a defense mechanism of projection, especially in those who exhibit codependent tendencies, which means they're over-obligate themselves, help others way too much. They might project good onto a bad person. And this, in essence, they don't want to deal with the reality that this person is no good for them. It's not a beneficial relationship. This other person is incapable of loving or being there for them. So they tend to project good onto a relationship. And it's not that they did not have good memories or good experiences, it's just they're not able to see the relationship for what it is. And they're trying to carry too much of the weight of the relationship. And, instead of dealing with and facing with the painful realization of this person, accepting it, and then accepting where the relationship is, and then being able to let it go and move on, they engage very much in this projection. So it's, in essence, like the projection of good versus projection of the negative that we see, the narcissist engaging in. Reaction formation. This is another form of a defense mechanism, and Freud was really big into this. Basically, it's a converting of unwanted or dangerous thoughts into their opposites. Where in essence, it creates a lot of that, becoming a false self. Again, it's using a defense mechanism, becoming, overly nice. In the face of anger, it's becoming overly, it's becoming the other extreme, that of which the behavior which you wish to kind of separate from. And rather than dealing with things realistically, it's becoming a way of dealing with it in a sort of like where people are too afraid of dealing with certain situations, so they will then give too much, be too much, over obligate, but it ends up usually kind of ricocheting on them because they were not able to feel like they're fully present. For example, at their workplace, they might be overly kind, over giving to their coworkers. They're so afraid to just be and feel like that they're enough, so they have to create a reaction formation, and this can be very exhausting to people, especially if they employ this defense mechanism every day in their life. They feel like they're kind of like not really able to be present at their job, or they feel like they're kind of hiding part of themselves. They're so afraid, and this can be developed, but it can also be resolved. So once you find yourself engaging in these, realize that it's just serving to protect you, and you don't really need to rely on these. You can do it. You've got security. You've got your connection to a higher source. You're learning to more accept and engage your true self, and that it's okay once you heal through this abuse, and you realize really that a lot of this had nothing to do with you. That these messages and treatments of you were from a maladaptive person, a character disordered person. It was someone who was essentially taking out so much shame on you that you had integrated and instilled and internalized so many erroneous messages, and that you've then had to develop to survive. You've employed many of these defense mechanisms. So once you realize that and say, wow, okay, whoa, I've developed a lot of these behaviors, I'm actually okay. Let me see about letting some of these go and living a more authentic, genuine life with just being okay with the person that I am, and realize that it's okay that you're not going to be punished for being the person that you are. You're not going to be yelled at. You're not going to be criticized. You're not going to be scapegoated. You're not going to be blamed. You're not going to be depersonalized. Give yourself a chance to reconnect to self-trust and trust with others, and realize that there are good people out there. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.